At 7:29 in the morning, my sneakers slap polished marble like I am running from a fire no one else can see. The silver tray tips, bitter coffee arcs, and porcelain cracks in a clean sound that makes every head snap toward me. My lungs burn from panic and from too many nights without sleep. I am Hannah Carter, the night shift housekeeper who is supposed to glide, not collide. But my body is louder than the rules. If Dominic Moretti turns that key today, I know something will end. Maybe my job, maybe my life, maybe daughter's future. He appears at the archway as if the mansion built itself around his shoulders. Charcoal suit, watch gleaming, hair combed with the kind of patience I never have for myself. A thin scar cuts his eyebrow, a punctuation mark on a face that does not waste expression. He moves with routine, the same measured steps I have memorized the way other women memorize lullabies. Around him, the house wakes in whispers. Staff lowering eyes, guards shifting weight, radios hissing. Dominic does not look at me yet. To him, I am another surface to pass until I step into his path. My warning comes out raw, not elegant, more breath than sentence, and it detonates a different kind of alarm. Rocco DeLuca is there instantly, a shadow with eyes, hand near his jacket as if my fear might be a weapon. Two other men slide between me and Dominic. Their faces are blank, trained blank, the way you look at a stray dog before deciding whether it bites. I taste metal on my tongue. What did I think would happen if I was wrong? How do you stay invisible in a house built on secrets? My hands shake, and I ache. Hours earlier, at 3:47 in the morning, I was alone in the library polishing mahogany shelves no one ever opened. The air smelled like old paper and expensive dust. Through the tall window, the garage lights painted rectangles on the floor below. I leaned closer and saw movement by Dominic's car, a black sedan that always looked freshly washed. Someone crouched low near the chassis, too careful to be a guard. My heart thudded once, heavy. I told myself it was exhaustion, but the wrongness lived in my bones. It felt like Lily's fever, before the thermometer confirms. I took Sophia's flashlight from the supply closet and moved down the back stairs, careful as a thief in my own workplace. The garage hit me with leather and motor oil. The car sat pristine, silent, almost smug. No tools, no footprints, nothing I could point to and call proof. I circled it anyway, crouching where the stranger had been, fingers brushing cold concrete. All I found was my own reflection in the paint, small and tired. I thought of Nana June asleep on my couch, Lily curled beside her. I went back upstairs pretending I had imagined everything alone. Morning arrived like a slap. I brewed Dominic's coffee the way the house demanded. Dark, unsweetened, served on time because time is a religion here. My hands still trembled from the night, but I hid it behind napkins and quiet steps. At 7:28, I set the tray down and tried to be furniture again. Then Dominic's phone rang, and his posture shifted, urgency under his calm. I caught fragments of Italian I used to practice for fun before life got serious. He needed to reach the waterfront fast, keys in hand, moving. My memory snapped to that crouched silhouette. So I ran. Coffee splashed my wrists, hot enough to sting, but shame burned hotter. I saw Dominic's guards react before I reached him, shoulders squaring, fingers twitching, the whole house turning predator toward the disturbance. Dominic finally faced me. His eyes were gray-blue, cold like water, and for one terrifying second I could not breathe. I forced my name into the air in my head, as if saying it would keep me real. Hannah Carter, single mom, night shift, invisible. I tried to explain the shadow, the crouch, the feeling, without sounding insane. Dominic watched me like a fuse. Rocco snapped orders into his radio, and men in dark gear flooded the garage. I stayed where they placed me, knees weak, staring at coffee stains on my uniform. From the doorway, I heard tools clink and a scanner beep. Minutes stretched, then broke. A technician slid out from beneath the car and lifted a small box tangled in wiring. Quiet horror, light enough to carry. Someone murmured it was pressure-triggered. My stomach dropped. Dominic's stillness turned sharp. Rocco glanced at me with new calculation. I had not imagined anything. I had changed everything, and the mansion started locking down. Dominic came back inside, and his gaze landed on me and stayed. It was not gentle, but it was real. I felt as if the air had peeled the uniform off my skin. Behind him, the mansion shifted into lockdown. Doors clicked, radios crackled, guards moved. The sweep team carried the device away like a verdict. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt smaller, because I understood what recognition meant here. I had stepped out of the shadows. I could not step back. Dominic held my eyes one more time, and I knew the questions were already coming next. The device left the garage in a black case, and the house inhaled like it had been holding its breath for years. Boots multiplied in the halls. Doors clicked. A metal detector appeared beside the pantry like it had always belonged there. My hands shook so hard I could not rinse the coffee off my wrists. I kept tasting bitter roast and fear. In the kitchen window, Dawn looked harmless, which felt like a lie. Rocco guided me to Dominic's study without touching me, but his attention pinned my back anyway. Dominic stood behind his desk, jacket still perfect, eyes colder than the marble downstairs. He did not waste time on comfort. His questions came in a straight line, and each one made me feel smaller. Why I was awake, why I waited, why I ran. I answered the way I clean, careful and fast, hoping precision would earn mercy. I told him nights pay extra, and extra is the only math that keeps my daughter steady. Lily is 7, brave until the wheeze starts. Nana June keeps her while I scrub floors for men who call themselves family. Every morning I pack a lunchbox with apple slices, then race to make it back for school pickup. If I miss that bell, Lily thinks I vanished like her father. I cannot let that happen again. Dominic listened without softening. I watched him weigh me the way people weigh diamonds. Not for beauty, but for flaws. He pressed on why I did not wake anyone at 3:47. My answer felt childish. I looked, found nothing, and I know what powerful men do to women who cry wolf. He decided trust requires proof. He ordered a full background check, and I heard my future crack like thin ice right then. They sat me outside the study while the house rebooted around me. Radios chirped. Men in vests walked past with tool cases. The other staff avoided my eyes, as if attention were contagious. My stomach churned. If Dominic decided I was involved, I would be gone by lunchtime, and so would my paycheck. No paycheck meant no inhaler refills for Lily and no rent help for Nana June. I pictured Lily's backpack and felt sick. When Dominic returned, he carried decisions in his eyes. He confirmed the device was real, and that my warning mattered. Then he did the impossible. He doubled my pay and added benefits that could cover Lily. He framed it like payment for services, as if kindness needed paperwork. Relief hit me so my throat ached. Then he hardened again, explaining I could not go home tonight because a woman who saves a king becomes leverage. I pictured Queens, Nana June's peeling hallway, Lily asleep in unicorn sheets. Dominic reduced it to one rule. Access leaves traces. If someone saw me near the garage, they could follow me to my child. The mansion would keep me inside, not as comfort but containment. At first light, an escort would take me to Queens for essentials. I nodded, trying to look steady, while my thoughts stampeded. All I could think was Lily alone. Rocco's men started digging into my life before Dominic finished speaking. I heard my name repeated into phones, saw a laptop glow with database screens, watched a printer spit pages like snow. Employment history, old addresses, a college transcript I never thought mattered. I sat still and let them strip me down to facts. It felt like standing in front of a mirror under lights. Every flaw visible, every sacrifice reduced to a line item. Dominic told me, in his own way, that if I wanted him dead I would have stayed silent. That logic should have comforted me. Instead it reminded me how narrow the space is between being trusted and being useful. His attention stayed on me even when he looked away, like a hand hovering near a bruise. I felt cornered by gratitude I did not ask for, and suspicion I could not escape. A door locked. Someone handed me water, and I drank like it might keep me upright. My mind did its usual math. Rent, groceries, Lily's prescriptions, Nana June's bus fare. Doubling my pay sounded like a miracle. But miracles in this house come with strings. I pictured Dominic stamping my name into his world. Being seen felt like standing under a spotlight with nowhere to step. I wondered if safety always costs freedom, and who pays the bill. Dominic's staff moved me to a corridor away from the main flow, but not free. A guard stayed outside my door. Mrs. Delaney handed me a notepad and told me to list what I needed from Queens. Documents, Lily's inhaler, Nana June's keys. My handwriting wobbled. Each item felt like admitting I might not return. I added Lily's stuffed rabbit and swallowed hard. Outside the window, SUVs arrived and lined up waiting for first light. I lay on the bed, listening to the mansion hum. Radios squawked, then fell quiet. I kept imagining Queens waking up without me. Nana June in the kitchen, Lily asking why I was not there. Dominic's protection wrapped around the house like barbed wire, keeping danger out and keeping me in. At dawn, an escort would drive me for essentials, and I would learn if my life was compromised. I waited for morning to answer. Morning comes gray and sharp, and the driveway is crowded with black SUVs like a funeral procession that forgot the flowers. I sit in the rear seat, hands folded, while Dominic rides beside me with the stillness of someone who has already rehearsed every danger. Rocco is in the lead vehicle, voice clipped over the radio. The mansion gates slide open, and I feel my old life pulling away behind us. I tell myself this is only a quick stop for documents and Lily's inhaler, yet my stomach knows better. The leather smells, but it cannot cover my fear today. Dominic's attention rests on me, even when he looks at his phone. I sense him explaining, in that calm way that leaves no room for arguing, that my face is now a doorway for enemies. If they cannot reach him, they will reach me, and if they cannot reach me, they will reach my child. I picture Nana June packing Lily's backpack, pretending she is not worried, and guilt pricks like needles. Queens is only an hour away, yet it feels like another planet. We pass bodegas, school buses, and laundromats, ordinary life moving on as if nothing ever broke. My building appears with its chipped brick and stubborn graffiti, and I hate how relieved I feel. This place is small, loud, and mine, even if it smells like fried onions and old carpet. I lean toward the window, searching for my own curtains, the ones Lily helped me choose. Then the radio crackles, and Rocco's tone changes. I do not catch every word, but I hear the shape of it. Someone inside Dominic's circle has been talking, and our destination is no secret. The convoy slows before the corner. Dominic tells me to stay down, breathing, and obey now. We stop half a block away, engines idling, exhaust curling into winter air. Doors open in synchronized bursts, and men spill out, vests dark against the pale street. Their movements are practiced, almost silent, like they are stepping onto a stage they built. I remain trapped behind tinted glass, hands on my knees, while Dominic's body shifts forward, ready to leave. He makes it clear I will not open a door for anyone but him or Rocco. The neighborhood feels too quiet, as if even the pigeons are holding their breath. I see my stairwell, and I cannot blink once. The first shots sound like boards snapping, sharp and wrong, and my mind refuses to name them. Glass spiderwebs somewhere outside. The SUVs rock as bullets strike metal, and the world becomes vibration and noise. I duck instinctively, pressing my forehead to the seat, tasting dust from the floor mat. Through a slit of sight, I catch flashes at rooftop level, then the deeper thump of return fire. I cannot see Dominic, only the open door he vanished through. My ears ring, and I count breaths like Lily taught me during asthma drills in case panic squeezes my chest shut. A concussion rolls down the street, not loud like a movie, but heavy, like the air itself got punched. The third floor of my building blooms outward in dust and sparks. For a second it is beautiful in the worst way, then it becomes raining glass. I watch my window vanish, my curtains erased, the life I built with thrift and hope turning into smoke. Lily's drawings are in there, Nana June's spare keys, my folder of medical papers, my cheap photo frame with Lily grinning, missing a tooth. I make a sound that does not feel human at all. Hands pull me down into the seat again, and the car lurches backward, tires squealing over gravel. I stare at the ruin until a turn hides it. Then I start shaking so hard my teeth click. No one asks if I am okay. In this world, survival is the only question. Back at the mansion, the smell of disinfectant hits me in the guest bathroom, and my body betrays me. I vomit until my throat burns, then rinse my mouth and see coffee stains still on my sleeves. My home is gone, and I am still here inside locked walls. Later, I hear commotion in the entrance hall, voices tight with anger. I stand at the landing and see a guard I recognize on his knees, wrists bound, face swollen from fear more than impact. I used to nod at him when I passed with mop buckets. Now he cannot meet my eyes. Dominic's expression is flat, and that is worse than rage. The man pleads in fragments, and I understand enough. Debts, threats, a choice made too late. Dominic ends it quickly, without spectacle. The body is carried away, and the hall goes silent. My hands turn cold again. That night I cannot sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see Queens collapsing in Dominic's face when he decided consequence was mercy. I realize my warning did not just save him. It dragged war into Lily's orbit. How do you breathe when life is erased in minutes? I pace the corridor, listening to radios murmur beyond my door. Near dawn, I look out and notice a dog limping by the fountain, dragging one hind leg while men walk past without seeing him. Something in me steadies. If I cannot fix my world, I can help a living thing. Queens did not leave my eyes. The mansion was quiet in the wrong way, as if every room had learned to whisper after hearing gunfire. Radios clicked behind closed doors. Boots passed and never stopped. A guard stood outside my guest room, like a new piece of furniture. I lay awake, palms damp, listening to the house breathe through vents and locked hinges. The sheets were soft, but my body stayed braced, waiting for impact that never came. I kept seeing Lily's crooked smile on a paper drawing, and I kept remembering how fast smoke swallowed it. When dawn thinned the dark, I walked the hall to feel my feet. The corridor smelled of leather polish and antiseptic. Outside, the courtyard held winter sun on pale stone. I leaned on the railing and tried Nana June's breathing trick. Slow in, slower out. Then I heard nails scrape across stone. Ranger moved near the fountain with his head high, dragging one hind leg as if it belonged to someone else. Men in black jackets walked past without looking down. They saw guard dog, not Pain. Ranger paused, shifted weight, and exhaled fog. His breath smelled like warm metal and old kibble. I moved before I could talk myself out of it. I approached from the side, making my shoulders small and my hands visible. Ranger's eyes tracked me, steady and suspicious. I watched for the signs my professors drilled into me. Stiff jaw, pinned ears, weight shifted forward. He was trained to bite, but Pain was making him careful, not aggressive. I stopped at a respectful distance and waited. Minutes passed with only wind and distant radios. When he stepped closer, I lowered to one knee. I let the back of my fingers brush his shoulder, then paused. He did not snap. He trembled as if hurt lived under his skin. My palm slid along his hip with gentle pressure, and heat greeted me where bone should have moved cleanly. The muscles around the joint were tight from months of compensating. When I asked his leg to extend, it resisted, guarding its range. I did not need fancy equipment to suspect something chronic, structural, the kind that creeps in until limping feels normal. Hip dysplasia, advanced joint pain, maybe both. I shifted his stance so weight fell on the stronger side, and Ranger sighed like relief surprised him. In my head, I built a simple routine: anti-inflammatory support, controlled walks, softer footing, and rest that did not feel like punishment. I would ask for his records and the house vet. I did not notice Dominic until Ranger did. The dog's gaze lifted past my shoulder, and the air tightened like a door closing. Dominic stood under the archway in a suit, eyes fixed on my hands, then on Ranger's leg, then on me. He looked the way he looked at maps, except now the map was Pain. I hated how visible I felt. I also hated that my chest warmed with relief, because for once he was seeing what I saw. Behind him, radios murmured, and the fortress kept breathing. I explained in plain language, not performing, because Ranger mattered more than my pride. I once had a different uniform, blue scrubs in a teaching clinic, and my hands were praised for being steady. I was on the veterinary track, chasing a degree and a life where I could fix what hurt. Then Lily's father disappeared when she was still small enough to fit on my forearm. He left rent, student loans, and silence. I tried waiting for him to come back. Bills did not wait. I took shifts cleaning offices, then hotels, then this mansion, where invisibility is a job requirement. I never stopped being what I trained to be. I just hid it behind gloves and quiet footsteps. Nightly, I sent money to Nana June and Lily's medicines. Dominic stayed quiet, and I watched the edges of his control tighten. Pain always does that to people. When I mentioned how suffering becomes invisible if no one names it, something shifted behind his eyes. The staff had spoken of Claire in fragments, a wife gone before my arrival, a name that made rooms go still. Dominic did not speak her name, but grief lived in his stillness, like movement might break what was holding. For a second, I saw loneliness under the armor, and it made my throat ache. Ranger leaned into my hand, choosing trust in this moment. Dominic stepped closer, and I sensed an unspoken request. Not just an explanation, but guidance. He wanted to know what Ranger needed, what the kennel needed, what his men needed after nights like this. His world ran on force, and it was full of things pretending not to crack. I realized my competence made me valuable, and in this mansion, value is never free. It is guarded, negotiated, and counted. When I stood, cold stone stiffening my knees, I saw the trap. Help meant being pulled closer. Staying small meant disappearing inside my own skin. I stroked Ranger's neck once more and felt his breath steady. Rocco's radio kept calling for schedules and cars. Dominic's attention settled on me like a spotlight I could not escape. I sensed a meeting coming, a neutral house full of eyes, and I knew being seen would carry a price I still owed today. Mrs. Delaney held the dress like it might accuse me. Navy silk, simple lines, the kind of fabric that slides over your skin and reminds you you do not belong in it. I changed in the guest wing bathroom and stared at my reflection until it blurred. I looked older than 29, tired in a way makeup could not hide. All I could think about was Lily's lunchbox on Nana June's table and how far away that small world felt from this mansion and its guns. Dominic waited downstairs, calm as if we were going to a charity gala instead of a council of predators. I understood the rule without anyone spelling it out. Stay close, stay quiet. Let Dominic do the talking. The drive to Long Island felt unreal. Black water beside the highway, city lights shrinking behind us. I pressed my palms together in my lap and tried to breathe like Nana June taught me. Slow in, slower out, as if breath could make me invisible again. The estate rose out of the dark with white stone and hedges, security lights turning the gardens into theater. Valets in gloves opened doors while men with earpieces watched every angle. Inside, chandeliers threw soft gold over marble floors. Servers moved like dancers, trays balanced, faces blank. I kept my chin up and my shoulders back, pretending I was meant to be there, while my pulse tapped panic against my throat. 5 families, I had heard the staff whisper. 5 circles of power that divided the city the way children divide a playground. They sat in clusters, suits tailored, watches heavy, laughter low and controlled. Their wives wore diamonds that could pay for Lily's hospital bills. Their eyes traveled over me, lingering on my hands, my posture, the borrowed dress. I felt them measuring what I cost and what I could be used for. I wanted to melt into the wallpaper, but Dominic's presence beside me was a spotlight. At the long table, crystal clinked and polite conversation skimmed the surface. Territory became a polite word. Violence became an absence in the room, understood rather than spoken. I swallowed bites I could not taste. Then the doors opened and the temperature changed. Vincent Barone walked in with silver hair and a smile that never warmed his eyes. He moved like he owned the air, and everyone let him. He looked at Dominic first, as if greeting a rival king, and then he looked at me as if he had been waiting. Barone's attention landed on my name with practiced ease. He spoke about me the way people talk about a product they have researched, listing facts that should have been private. Single mom, Queen's address, Nana June's age, Lily's school hours and her breathing issues. Each detail hit like a slap. Not because it was new to me, but because it was proof that my child had been mapped by strangers. Barone's tone stayed polite while he painted me as desperate, the kind of woman who would trade loyalty for rent money. He suggested I could have staged the car device, could be lying now, could be using Dominic's weakness for attention. He called me disposable without raising his voice, and the word thudded in my chest. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Shame tried to fold me in half. The old reflex returned, the one that kept me safe for years. Become smaller, apologize with my silence, disappear. But I could not disappear at this table. Every stare held me in place. I saw doubt flicker in faces that mattered, the kind of doubt that opens doors for enemies. My hands clenched under the table. I thought of Lily's rabbit, of Nana June's tired knees, of my apartment turning to smoke. I wanted to stand and run, but my legs would not move. Dominic moved instead. One moment he was seated, the next he was upright, still as a blade. His voice stayed controlled, but it filled the room in a way that made forks pause midair. He made it clear Barone would not speak about me again. He did not frame it as kindness. He framed it as law. He stated that I was under his personal protection, not as an employee, not as a witness, but as someone he had claimed. The word claimed landed heavier than the chandeliers. In this room, it meant I was no longer a free piece on the board. I was part of his territory. I watched faces change. Some looked amused, some looked wary, some looked relieved, as if a rule had been clarified. Barone's smile sharpened, satisfied, like he had pushed Dominic into showing his hand. My stomach twisted. Dominic's declaration wrapped around me like armor, and it still felt like relief. If he made me untouchable, maybe Lily stayed safer. If he made me his, maybe Barone looked at me as leverage instead of prey. But being protected publicly meant being marked publicly. When we left, the night air tasted colder outside. In the car, I stared at my hands and tried to decide whether I had been saved or owned. I knew one thing for sure. Dominic's protection would not stop at words spoken at a table. It would follow me home, into my decisions as a mother, and Barone now knew exactly where to aim next. By the time we got back from the estate, my skin still felt too tight. The mansion lights were softer than the chandeliers, but I could not stop seeing Barone's smile and the way the room weighed me. I had just kicked off my heels when my phone buzzed with Nana June's number, and my first thought was that something had happened at Lily's school. Nana June sounded breathless, the way she does when she is trying not to scare me. Then her voice cracked into happy tears. She told me Lily was being transferred to a children's hospital in Manhattan, one of those places with glass walls and famous specialists, the kind I only see on donation commercials. An ambulance pickup was already scheduled. A pediatric pulmonologist had reviewed Lily's file. Everything was approved. Everything was paid for. Nana kept repeating that part, like she was afraid the words might disappear. For a few seconds, I went weightless. Relief hit so hard it almost hurt. Then my mind snapped back to the dinner table, to Barone listing my life like receipts. A benefactor. That was what Nana said the hospital called it. I looked down at my hands, smelling of perfume and fear, and I knew whose world anonymous miracles came from. The gratitude in my chest twisted into anger so fast I startled myself. Lily was my child. Her lungs were my prayer, my alarm clock, my budget. Nobody got to move her like a chess piece without my consent, no matter how rich or powerful they were. I could still feel Dominic's declaration at the table, the word claimed wrapping around my throat. I walked down the corridor toward his office with my heart pounding, not from love, not from fear, but from a mother's instinct to guard her boundaries. His office smelled like leather and cold coffee. Maps were spread across the desk, and monitors showed camera feeds that made the house look like a machine. Dominic stood with his sleeves rolled up, phone in his hand, expression steady. He did not look surprised to see me. That made my anger flare brighter, because it meant he had planned for this moment too. I told him, in a rush of honesty I could not soften, that Lily was not a bargaining chip and my life was not a contract I signed in exchange for protection. I told him I understood gratitude, but gratitude was not permission. I could accept help and still demand respect. My voice shook, and I hated that it made me sound young, but I kept going. I reminded him that being a single mom teaches you to live with fear, but it also teaches you to make your own decisions even when your knees are trembling. Dominic listened the way he listens to threats, calm on the outside, calculating on the inside. He made it clear he would not apologize for moving fast. In his world, waiting is how people die. He did not say it like a villain. He said it like a man who has buried consequences and refuses to bury them again. When I mentioned consent, he bristled, and I saw the edge of grief behind his control. Claire. The name never sat on his tongue, but I felt her presence in the way he could not tolerate helplessness. He solves pain by fixing it with resources, muscle, connections. It is how he survived losing her. I told him I was not Claire, and Lily was not a symbol of his redemption. I was Hannah Carter, and my daughter needed her mother's choice, not a stranger's rescue. I said that if he truly respected me, he had to stop making decisions over my head. For a moment, the room felt like it might explode again. Not with gunfire, but with pride colliding with pride. Then something shifted. Dominic's shoulders eased by a fraction, like he had been holding a weight too long. He did not surrender control, but he redirected it. He asked what Lily needed from me right now, and what Nana June needed to feel safe, and what I would have chosen if I had the money. The questions landed differently than commands. They made space for me to be a person, not an asset. I hated that my eyes burned. I hated that part of me wanted to lean into that space. After I left his office, relief and resentment walked beside me like twins. I could not deny the truth. Lily would breathe easier with specialists. Nana June would sleep without counting inhaler puffs, but I also could not ignore the cost. Barone had already proven he could reach into my private life. Dominic's help was a shield, yet it was also a sign painted on my back. Rocco found me near the staircase with a tablet in his hand and his face set hard. He showed me images from a camera across the street from Lily's school. A man lingering too long near the gate, another tailing Nana June to the corner store. Barone's people, identified by the way Rocco's jaw tightened. Dominic had moved Lily because the threat was already there. My stomach dropped through the floor. The miracle was not just mercy. It was a warning flare. If they could watch my child in daylight, what would they do in the dark? At 4:12 in the morning, the mansion wakes like a body being punched. Glass shatters somewhere below my room, followed by the deep thud of something heavy hitting stone. Alarms begin to howl, not one sound but layers, rising and overlapping until the air feels sharp. The walls tremble, picture frames rattling against plaster. For one stupid second I think of Lily's school fire drills, the calm voice telling children to line up, and I almost laugh at the mismatch. Then the floor tilts under my feet, and fear floods in cold and fast. Bootsteps hammer the hallway. A guard yanks my door open and points me toward the reinforced corridor I was shown on my first day, the one with steel panels hidden behind expensive wallpaper. Dominic appears at the far end, already dressed, a pistol in his hand like it is another accessory. His face is unreadable, but his eyes move constantly, counting exits, counting seconds. He motions me forward with a clipped urgency that does not waste softness. I grab my phone, my cardigan, and the only thought I can hold. Lily and Nana June are somewhere else, but I am still a mother even here. The corridor mouth is 10 steps away when I hear a scream from the entrance hall, cut short into a wet cough. My body stops, then turns, before my brain agrees. I see Tyler on the marble near the main stairs, one of the youngest guards, the one who used to wink at Lily's drawings when she visited with Nana June. He is folded on his side, hands pressed to his middle, eyes wide and unfocused. Two men hover, frozen between training and panic. Dominic's head snaps toward me, warning sharp in his posture, but my feet are already moving. Running towards suffering is the only kind of prayer I know. I drop to my knees beside Tyler and force myself to see details, not horror. His skin is pale, his breathing quick, and his hands are slippery with blood I will not describe. I press clean cloth from a nearby table against the worst of it and keep steady pressure. The same way I once stopped a bleeding paw in a clinic, and the same way I held Lily's ribs when she could not catch air. I lift his legs slightly to fight shock, watch his mouth for color, and talk inside my head like a metronome. Stay with me. Stay awake. Breathe. Radio static spits numbers and coordinates above us. Someone slides a first aid kit toward me, and I steal tape and gauze without looking up. Tyler's eyes flutter, and I anchor him with my voice in my hands, counting his breaths, keeping pressure. The gunfire outside surges and fades in waves, muffled by thick walls, but every thump makes Tyler flinch. Rocco's voice cuts through the chaos in short bursts, calling perimeters secure, calling for medics, calling for doors to seal. Finally, 2 paramedics rush in, kneel, and take over with calm speed. One gives me a quick nod that feels like permission to breathe again. When they wheel Tyler away, the silence that follows is not peace, only a pause. My knees ache from marble, and my fingers cramp from holding pressure. I stand and realize my sleeves are soaked, my hair full of dust, my heart pounding like it wants out of my chest. The entrance hall looks wrong, smeared with footprints and shattered glass, and the smell of smoke clings to the curtains. Dominic steps into my line of sight, scanning me for injuries. For a moment his control flickers, replaced by something close to fear, and it scares me more than the gunfire did. A thin line of blood trickles from the scar on his eyebrow, new blood finding an old path. He tries to wave it off, but I have already reached for gauze in the abandoned kit. Up close, he smells like gunpowder and clean soap, a strange mix of violence and discipline. I press the pad gently to the cut and feel his warmth under my palm. My hands tremble, not from squeamishness, but from the sudden closeness. The fact that he lets me do this. His heartbeat is steady, and it steadies mine. I think about Claire without knowing her face, only the shadow she left behind his eyes. The house settles into a strained calm. Outside, engines fade, and distant sirens never approach the gate. Men move through the hall with flashlights, counting shell casings, checking cameras, talking in low bursts that sound like prayer in reverse. Rocco returns with a tablet and a jaw set like stone. He reports that the attackers did not guess their way in. They moved straight to a service corridor that only staff and security should know, timing their breach between camera sweeps. The phrase internal route lands in my stomach. It means someone mapped this home from the inside. I picture Nana June's hands tying Lily's hair and feel my guilt sharpen into panic. I meet Dominic's eyes and feel his question without hearing it. If they know our corridors, someone inside drew them a map. That thought makes my skin crawl, because Lily and Nana June are now under this roof. In a few hours, Dominic will gather his men to plan revenge. I will demand a smarter way. By noon, the mansion looked repaired, but it felt like a wounded animal braced for the next kick. Boards covered the shattered windows. New cameras blinked on the corners. Men I had never seen before stood in the hallways with rifles held low, as if breathing too loud might invite another attack. Rocco led me to the war room, a space I had cleaned once and never entered again. Now it smelled like cold coffee and printer ink. Fluorescent lights turned everyone's skin pale. A map of the Brooklyn waterfront covered the table, pinned with red and blue markers. Dominic stood at the head, sleeves rolled up, a bandage still hugging his eyebrow. Around him, his lieutenants spoke in clipped bursts that sounded like numbers, routes, and promises. I listened, trying to translate their certainty into something human, until one phrase sliced through me. Collateral. They said it the way people say weather, unavoidable, impersonal. A warehouse near the port backed onto worker housing. If they hit hard, the blast and return fire would spill into families who packed lunches and paid rent and never chose Vincent Barone's war. My stomach tightened. I saw Lily's school gate in my mind. The way parents crowd the sidewalk at 3 o'clock. The way kids run without looking. I saw Nana June's hands smoothing Lily's hair, doing the small rituals that keep fear quiet. I could not sit there while strangers turned other children into acceptable loss. Anger rose, hot and clean, and it surprised me because it felt like strength. I told myself I was not asking Dominic to become gentle. I was asking him to become precise. Barone wanted Dominic to burn the city so everyone would fear him. That was the trap. If Dominic scorched neighborhoods, he would create 100 new enemies, and the innocent would carry the cost. I felt my voice in my chest even before I spoke, that stubborn refusal I had used to survive single motherhood. We find another way. The other way was already walking through Barone's buildings every day. Janitors who empty trash at midnight. Delivery drivers who see which doors open early and which men never remove their coats. Maintenance workers who memorize hallways because they fix what breaks. Dock staff who watch trucks come and go, who hear fragments of conversation over forklifts and pretend not to. I knew them because I used to be them. On Sundays, before Dominic's mansion, I spent hours at a community center in Queens helping neighbors fill out medical forms, translate school letters, and fight with insurance hotlines. Trust is built in small favors and shared exhaustion. I laid out a plan that did not require anyone to carry a gun or step outside their normal job. Observation only. Memory. Patterns. If someone already works near Barone's port warehouses, they can notice arrival times, vehicle types, guard routines, and the small weak points people overlook because they are used to them. I offered incentives that felt almost insulting compared to the money on Dominic's table, but meaningful to families living paycheck to paycheck. $500 for a useful piece of information, $2,000 for something critical. No heroics, no confrontations. Just eyes that Barone ignores. Dominic resisted, not because the idea was foolish, but because it involved me. I could feel his refusal like a wall. He wanted me locked inside the compound, safe by force, not useful by choice. I pushed back anyway. I reminded myself that protection without agency is another kind of prison. I agreed to his condition that I would coordinate from the mansion only, never go into the field, never expose myself directly. If I broke that, he would default to the brutal plan. The line was clear, and I hated how easily my life became a negotiation. That afternoon I sat on the edge of the war room table with my phone, thumb hovering, heart thudding. I called Marisol, who cleans offices near the waterfront and once cried at my folding table because she could not understand a custody form. I texted Devin, a delivery driver who brings linens to half the hotels in Brooklyn. I reached out to Mr. Patel, who does night maintenance for a storage company and sees everything because everyone assumes he is deaf. I kept my message simple. I needed what they already saw. They did not need to risk themselves. They would be paid. They would not be alone. Answers came faster than I expected. People replied with yeses, with questions, with details that proved they were always watching. One person described a Tuesday morning pattern at a South warehouse. Another mentioned a gray van that never parked in the same spot twice. Someone else noted that a side gate sticks in cold weather and guards hate opening it. Each detail was small, but together they formed a map shaped like truth. For the first time since the bomb under Dominic's car, I felt hope that smart could beat brutal. Then a name appeared in a message that made my lungs forget how to work. Aaron Cole, Lily's father. A casual mention, like it was nothing, tied him to a contractor crew near the port. My vision narrowed. The past I had buried under night shifts, and Bleach was standing inside Dominic's war zone. If Barone realized that too, what would he do? Dominic spread my notes across the war room table as if they were maps drawn by someone worth listening to. He did not praise me, but his silence changed shape. It felt less like suspicion and more like attention. When he looked up, his eyes held mine for a heartbeat, and I understood he was trusting my people, not just using them. Rocco stopped calling them civilians and started calling them sources. The shift was small, but it made my chest loosen. For the first time, the plan felt like ours, not his, even though the walls smelled of smoke. We worked through the afternoon under harsh fluorescent light. Pins moved on the Brooklyn waterfront map, and clocks were checked with the same reverence other households give to prayers. Outside the door, the mansion hummed with repairs and new locks. I watched Dominic's finger trace a route, then pause, then trace again, as if he could feel Barone's mind through paper. My phone kept vibrating with messages from my contacts, and each buzz felt like a pulse in my palm. I breathed slow, thinking of Lily's chest rising and falling, and I promised myself no innocent doors would burn tonight. Near dusk, Dominic's teams left in waves, vehicles rolling out like shadows. I did not watch them depart from a window. I sat in the war room chair and listened. Radios murmured in low tones, then clicked quiet, then returned with short confirmations that told me more by what they did not say. Somewhere across the city, metal doors opened, men moved, engines idled. My imagination filled the gaps, but I refused to feed it horror. I focused on the rule we had set. No collateral, no families caught in the spill. Only a message, and an exit path home. When the first update came, my shoulders dropped before I knew they were raised. The Target warehouse had been hit without a street-wide panic. The housing block behind it stayed dark and quiet. No sirens racing toward families, no screams cutting through the radio. Dominic's men spoke in codes, but I could hear the relief in their clipped breathing. A supply line was crippled. A warning was delivered. Barone's reach had been cut without touching children who slept with nightlights. For a moment, victory felt like air returning. I pressed my palm to chest and whispered thanks into silence. That night I called the hospital and heard Lily breathing through sleep, soft and steady. Nana June sounded tired but lighter, as if she had set down a weight she carried for years. Ranger limped less in the courtyard, tail swishing when he saw me, and it felt like proof that pain can be managed. Messages from my network came with pride, not fear. People told me they liked being noticed for once, even if only by me. I let myself imagine a future where my community mattered more than Barone's threats. I let myself believe this could end soon. Hope lasted until the next morning. Victor, one of Dominic's most trusted eyes in neutral territory, sent a message that made the room go cold. Rumors said Barone was expecting an assault and had been leaking perfect information on purpose, nudging Dominic toward a spectacular trap. The warehouse we wanted next might be staged like bait on a hook. I watched Dominic's face settle into a deeper calm, the kind that arrives when fear becomes math. My own stomach tightened. If our smartest move was predicted, what else had Barone predicted about us? I felt the answer hovering, like glass. Dominic turned away from the map and looked at the mansion cameras, then back at me. I did not need him to say it aloud. Territory was noise. Leverage was music. Barone did not want a warehouse as much as he wanted proof Dominic had gone soft. A child in a hospital bed was the perfect lever. My throat closed. Dominic's eyes sharpened with decision. He would not chase bait. He would not leave the mansion thinly defended, while my daughter breathed behind glass downtown. In that instant, I understood that I was the target and Lily was the prize. The new plan formed fast. Dominic sent a small team to make noise at the port, just enough to keep Barone's scouts convinced we were still biting. Meanwhile, the mansion became a shell. Every entry point reinforced, every corridor watched. Rocco doubled guards and sealed the guest wing. Dominic ordered Lily and Nana June moved from the hospital to the safest rooms here, under medical escort and private security. I signed papers with shaking hands, feeling like I was dragging my child from a hospital into a war zone. Dominic called it protection. I called it surrendering normal life entirely. That evening, Lily slept in a bedroom bigger than my old apartment, monitors blinking beside her bed like stars. Nana June sat in an armchair, refusing to cry, knitting to keep her hands busy. I paced the hallway, angry at Barone, angry at Dominic, angry at myself for ever believing safety could be simple. I wanted a family, not a fortress. Yet the fortress was all I had left. Dominic passed me once, his expression calm, his gaze weighted with responsibility, and I realized he was preparing for a siege. If Barone came again, he would come for my child. At 3:47 in the morning, the alarms return, the exact time that first shadowed my life, and my stomach drops as if the house has remembered. A concussion ripples through the east wing, and the chandelier in the upstairs hall swings like a pendulum. Lily jerks awake in the guest suite, eyes wide, clutching her rabbit. Nana June pulls her close, whispering prayers under her breath, while I press my palm to Lily's back and feel her breathing, counting it like it's the only number that matters. The safe corridor lights flip to red. Boots pound, radios spit clipped calls, and outside engines roar, then split, then surge again. Dominic has rehearsed this. I hear it in the cadence of his men, in the way doors seal with heavy clicks, in the way Rocco's voice keeps rolling through the speakers, naming perimeters and closing gaps. Dust sifts from the ceiling. I taste plaster and fear. We move as trained, not graceful, just fast. Lily stays between Nana June and me, our hands locked. I keep my voice low because panic is contagious, and I will not infect my child with it. Another impact hits the front grounds, a dull boom that makes Lily flinch. It is not close yet, but it is coming, and I hate that I can tell. The radio chatter changes, sharper, shorter. Someone has breached the outer wall. Then the courtyard cameras go dark for a second, a blind blink. My throat tightens. How do you protect a child when your walls can be mapped by enemies? I think of Barone's smile, of him listing Lily's school like he owned it. A guard appears at the corridor junction, eyes frantic, pointing down the service hall. A small team slipped inside, using a route that should have been locked. The words inside route thud through me. It means betrayal again, or at least knowledge. It means they are hunting for us, not for territory. I feel Lily's fingers squeeze mine, and something in me hardens. We are 10 steps from the reinforced door, when a man rounds the corner with a weapon raised, and a second man behind him. One of them grabs Lily's shoulder, yanking her close, and my vision narrows to the child in his grip. Lily freezes, silent, brave in the way only children can be when they do not understand they are allowed to scream. Nana June makes a sound like grief starting. The man's muzzle lifts toward Lily, and my body moves before thought forms. I drop the emergency flashlight from my pocket and let it clatter across the tile, a small, bright distraction rolling between his boots. When his eyes flick down, I step into him, shoving my shoulder into his ribs, not to fight, just to break his aim. Lily slips backward toward Nana June. The second man lunges, and I throw my arms out wide, blocking the corridor like a door. You in a flee. I do not feel brave. I feel desperate, and that is a kind of strength, too. Gunfire cracks from the side hall. Dominic bursts into view, moving like the nightmare Barone created. In 2 breaths, the threat is gone. One man down, the other pinned and disarmed by Rocco's team. Dominic's eyes find Lily first, then Nana June, then me. His face does not soften, but his hands shake for a fraction of a second when he checks Lily's cheek for injury. I swallow the sob rising in my throat and focus on Lily's breathing again. The siege ends the way storms do, not with a final sound, but with the gradual thinning of noise. Radios report retreating vehicles and secured gates. Barone himself is dragged into the entrance hall, furious, held upright by guards. His suit is torn, his smile gone. Dominic stands a few feet away, weapon lowered, the air around him tight with decision. I know what the old Dominic would do. I have seen how quickly he ends betrayal, how cleanly he chooses consequence. Part of me wants it too. The dark relief of a threat erased forever. Then I look at Lily's small hand in mine and realize what that kind of ending teaches a child. Dominic looks at Barone, then at me, and I see a war inside his eyes, between vengeance and the future we are trying to build. Dominic makes a different call. He orders an ambulance, then reaches for his phone with a steadiness that feels like restraint. Barone's taken alive, not spared, but sentenced to collapse. Cooperation, testimony, witness protection, a life cut off from power. It is mercy shaped like justice, and it is worse than a bullet for a man like him. When dawn finally bleeds into the sky, the mansion is scarred but standing. Lily sleeps again, exhausted, her rabbit under her chin. Nana June sits beside her, eyes open, guarding with love. Dominic stands at the corridor window, looking out as if he is seeing this home for the first time. I stand beside him, shaking, and understand he did not just win. He chose us. Tomorrow will bring investigators, paperwork, and questions I cannot answer. But I hold my daughter's hand and feel her breathe, and that is enough. The worst night is over. Now I have to figure out who I am when surviving is not the only job. 3 months after the siege, the mansion sounds different. No alarms, no rushing boots, only steady footsteps, and the soft click of doors that lock because they are supposed to, not because we are dying. Contractors have patched marble, replaced glass, repainted the hallway where dust once fell like snow. Outside the gates, lawyers and agents trade folders, and the word testimony floats through calls like smoke that will not leave. Dominic spends hours with his counsel, speaking in low tones. I spend hours learning how to live in silence again. Some nights I wake expecting the walls to shake. Lily came home with a new inhaler and a sticker chart the nurses gave her, as if breathing could be earned by good behavior. She is gaining weight again, cheeks rounding, laugh returning in sudden bursts that make Nana June look up like she is hearing music. We practice slow breaths together on the sunroom rug, and I let her paint my nails bright pink, because normal is something you rebuild by hand. When she runs across the lawn, a guard follows at a distance, and I hate it, but I love that she can run without fear at all. Nana June finally met Dominic in the kitchen. Not during a crisis, but over coffee and the smell of toast. She is small and stubborn, with laugh lines that look like parentheses around her mouth. She studied Dominic the way she used to study Lily's chest for signs of wheeze, then patted his bandaged eyebrow as if he were a boy who played too rough. Dominic did not flinch. He even smiled, brief and real. Nana June made it clear, in her gentle way, that love does not excuse control. Dominic listened. She winked at me, and I felt safer. I should have been satisfied. We were alive. Lily was healing. Barone was gone from our doorstep. Yet once the adrenaline drained, an emptiness opened inside me like a room with no furniture. I was no longer the invisible maid. But I was not comfortable being the protected woman either. People in the house watched me differently, with respect and curiosity, and I felt myself shrinking against it. I loved Dominic, and I hated that loving him could become my only label. I needed something that was mine, something that could not be taken in one night even after a life of hiding. Dominic noticed before I admitted it. He watched me hover by Ranger's kennel, watched my eyes follow every limping stray at the gate, watched me stare at empty storefronts when we drove through Queens. One evening he brought me to the study and waited, not as a boss issuing orders, but as a man making space. In that quiet, I confessed my old dream out loud. A low-cost veterinary clinic for families who choose between rent and medicine. Dominic did not laugh. He asked what it would take, and for the first time, I believed he meant my answer. 2 months later, paint fumes and sunlight filled a renovated corner unit near the 7 train, close enough that my neighbors could walk in without a car. I chose the name and the staff, and Dominic kept his promise by staying in the background, funding equipment and security without swallowing the space. On opening day, I held scissors over a ribbon and saw familiar faces from the community center, lunch pails still in hand. People brought pets in carriers and boxes, trusting me with what they loved. Lily handed out stickers at the door, proud like she owned the place. My invisible network did not disappear when the war cooled. It turned into a phone tree for good news. Who needed pet food? Who needed a ride? Who could translate for an elderly neighbor at the pharmacy? The same people Barone never saw became my backbone, and I made sure they were paid fairly for clinic work, not for secrets. Watching them laugh in my waiting room felt like justice. Dominic saw it. He began donating to the community center with no speeches, just supplies. Power looked different when it was used to build, not to terrify for kids everywhere. Back at the mansion, the staff stopped treating me like a roomer and started treating me like a leader. Mrs. Delaney brought me a folder one afternoon, signatures filling the pages. Cooks, cleaners, gardeners, and guards had signed. They wanted me officially overseeing the household when Dominic traveled, because they said I kept my head during the siege and treated everyone with the same respect. I cried in the pantry, embarrassed by my own softness. Dominic signed last, not as permission, but as acknowledgement. In that moment I understood, authority can be earned, not gifted even after life of hiding. Tonight, after Lily falls asleep, I walk to the library alone. The shelves gleam, and the mahogany smells the way it did on the night I first saw danger through the window. I stand where I once scrubbed in silence, invisible as dust, and I remember running at 7:29, coffee spilling, heartbreaking. The glass has been replaced, thicker now, and the courtyard lights glow steady. I press my fingertips to the cool pane and breathe. I think about how I begged to be unseen for safety, and how being seen almost destroyed me. It also saved me. I used to believe strength meant surviving alone, head down, silent. Dominic believed strength meant crushing threats. Between those beliefs, we learned something better. True strength is choosing compassion when you have the power to destroy, choosing restraint when revenge would feel easy. Being seen was dangerous, but it gave me my life back, Lily's laughter back, and my purpose back. If this story stayed with you, like this video, share it, and comment one thing. Would you choose mercy or revenge when you finally have the upper hand? And would you risk being seen to protect what you love?